What's up guys, my name is Ace, and it's that time again to cover all of the hidden changes from the most recent update within Modern Warfare. This seems to happen with just about every update we get, where we get our patch notes, and I talk about things that do change, and then over the course of the next day or two, the community and myself discover a ton of other things that changed that, for some reason, they didn't decide to include in the patch notes. And in this one, there's actually something that might impact the meta a decent amount when it comes to gun usage, when it comes to LMGs. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's kick it off with the first thing that is really strange that they didn't decide to mention in the patch notes, because this is like a really obvious one. And I did mention this yesterday. They added Dragon's Breath rounds to the VLK Rogue shotgun. Not too much to say about that though, and like I said, already talked about that. I just wanted to bring it up again since it is something they didn't mention. Next up, they completely reworked the audio for the Dragunov. When you shoot the Dragunov now, it sounds completely different, and I guess I'll just let you guys hear it for yourself. I'm going to play two clips. The first clip will be from before the update, and the second clip is after the update. Personally, I think this sounds a lot better after the update, so I'm actually quite happy they made this change, even though it is really minor. However, it's also interesting that they didn't just change the audio here, they actually buffed the Dragunov a little bit as well. And what they did is they effectively extended the multiplier from the lower torso down to the limbs. So previously, up close, if you shot somebody in the foot, for instance, you would deal 63 damage, whereas if you shot them in the stomach, you'd deal 70 damage. Now, you deal that 70 damage to the feet as well. And up close, this really doesn't make a difference. However, at the longer ranges, after you get to that drop-off point with the damage, this makes a big difference because previously, limb damage was 45 and lower torso damage was 50. Now, the minimum damage, no matter where you shoot them, is going to be at least 50. And this means the Dragunov will never be a 3-shot kill now unless you're shooting through something. Well, this is a relatively minor buff that doesn't affect most situations you should be finding yourself in, because you shouldn't be shooting people in the limbs. It is a nice change to make the Dragunov at least a little bit more consistent, as it should be. Now, another thing I noticed with the Dragunov, I did a little bit of testing on bullet drop, and it seems like it might have got a slight buff in this area as well. Now, it's really hard to tell if you're just using the standard barrel, so what I did here is I just compared with the 510mm barrel, the shortest barrel possible that gives you the most bullet drop. And I put it side by side, pre-patch with post-patch, and you can definitely see there is a slight difference here. And I'm assuming this applies outside of this barrel as well. It's just you'll see the difference more with this barrel since it has the most bullet drop. But it does appear that they did slightly buff the bullet drop on the Dragunov. Now, I did also test with the other sniper rifles just to see if this is something they did across the board, and those didn't seem to change at all. The bullet drop on those seems to be exactly the same as it was before. As for the next thing that I saw a lot of people wondering about, this is footstep audio in multiplayer. A lot of people have been questioning whether or not footstep audio has changed. So I did put this to the test, and I found no change whatsoever in the standard footstep audio, the dead silence footstep audio with occlusion, so if they're on the other side of a wall or on a different level, it all sounds exactly the same as it was pre-patch. So if you are one of those people that think the footstep volume changed, it doesn't appear to be the case. Now finally, on the multiplayer side of things, although this of course does carry over to Warzone as well, some of the LMGs got a pretty massive buff. And this buff wasn't to their damage or their range or like the traditional stats, this buff was to their open bolt delay. Since many of the LMGs have an open bolt design, when you pull the trigger, the gun doesn't actually fire immediately, there's a bit of a delay before the gun goes off. And this delay varies depending on the LMG. Some of the LMGs, even if they are open bolt, they don't even have a delay for this. So it's really inconsistent. But let's just go through this, starting it off with the PKM. This one didn't change with this update. It had a very slight open bolt delay pre-patch, and it still has a very slight open bolt delay post-patch of about 50 milliseconds. As for the SA-87, this one saw a massive improvement. Pre-patch, it had an open bolt delay of about 180 milliseconds, and now it's gone. I can't measure an open bolt delay anymore, as far as I can see at least. This gun will go off the moment you pull the trigger, which is a really big buff. That effectively buffs its time to kill by 180 milliseconds. As for the M91, same story as the PKM. The open bolt delay didn't seem to change here. It was about 67 milliseconds pre-patch and still 67 milliseconds now. However, the next one, the MG34, this one was a ridiculous improvement. Pre-patch, this had an insane open bolt delay of about 317 milliseconds. That's slower than the average time to kill of weapons up close in this game, which is insane. And they cut this all the way down to 67 milliseconds. So there still is an open bolt delay with this gun, but that improvement is so huge. If you haven't tried the MG34 out since this update, give it a shot and you might be very pleasantly surprised. Now, I should also mention with the Holger, there is no open bolt delay pre-patch or post-patch, and surprisingly, the Bruin also has no open bolt delay whatsoever, even though this gun does have an open bolt design. Now, I did also want to remind you guys that with the Uzi, I was unable to detect an actual open bolt delay pre-patch, and I'm still unable to detect a delay. It appears that delay that you hear is purely audio. It's not actually delaying your shot coming out of the gun, based on my testing at least. I should also mention, just for clarity, with the 357, we don't have an open bolt delay, we have a double action delay, and this hasn't been changed at all with this update. It's exactly how it was before the update. But with that, that covers everything I was able to find as far as stealth changes that affect multiplayer at least. However, there were also several for Warzone. And to be clear, with many of these, they were actually tweeted out by one of the developers at Raven, but they just didn't make it in the patch notes. So for those people that don't follow developers on Twitter, I thought I would include it in this video because it is important. The first thing is we now have the ability to drop our gun on the floor. So if you have a teammate that's respawning, for instance, and you want to give them one of your guns so that they can fight back, before this patch, your only option for giving them one of your guns was to find another gun on the ground, and then you had to go and pick that up, which would then drop your gun for your teammate. Post-patch, you can drop it just like you can drop money or armor. It's within the same menu. You just have to scroll over to your gun, and you can drop it there for your teammate. Additionally, the trophy system, the shield turret kill streak, as well as the deployable cover, all three of these got a really big buff to their duration. They now last for 10 full minutes unless they're destroyed by an enemy player. And this is a pretty big update. I don't know the exact timings on this before, but I do recall throwing a trophy system out a few times and just being really surprised at how short the duration was on that. Like, it blew up by itself within, I don't know, a minute or so. Now it'll last for a full 10 minutes, and this is most important with the trophy system because something a lot of people haven't recognized yet, you can attach a trophy system to a vehicle. So you can throw it on top of your SUV or your cargo truck, and it will often protect your vehicle from being destroyed by things like C4s or RPGs. So for anybody that's planning on driving a vehicle around, make sure you pick up a trophy system if you find it and put it on your vehicle before you get in. It will definitely save your life in some situations. Additionally, with this update, enemy recon drones and shield turret kill streaks will no longer show up on your minimap. And I think that's great. The shield turret kill streak is already practically useless. It's extremely weak. But at least with this update, it's not quite as weak as it was before, just because the enemy can't see the exact location of that shield turret on the minimap. And when it comes to the recon drone, I just thought it didn't really make much sense for that to show up on an enemy's radar at all. You can see it and hear it, you know when it's marked to you, so you can typically find it on your own without having a minimap, and I think this was a good change. Another nice little quality of life change that they made was to the kill feed in Warzone. Previously, anytime any one of the players in the match, not just your teammates, but anybody else, if they left the game, it would show up in your kill feed, which didn't really seem to make much sense. Like, why do you need to know who is leaving the game unless they're on your team? And it would often clutter things a little bit down there. That has been removed, and that's another great little thing that they did. Now, as for something that wasn't mentioned at all, it appears they've nerfed the crates that you find around the map, like the humming crates. Previously, every single one of those crates, as far as I can remember, were guaranteed to have cash in them. I believe it was a minimum of 500 cash. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I'm pretty sure it was at least 500 cash, and then some of them would have up to like 2,500 or maybe even 3,000 cash in them. After this patch, you are no longer guaranteed to get money out of these crates. That's not to say that you can't get money out of them, you're just no longer guaranteed to get that money. So it definitely seems like cash is a little bit harder to come by, at least in trios and quads. I haven't played much solo since this update, so I don't really know where it stands when it comes to solos. But with trios and quads, money is definitely harder to come by, which is definitely interesting and arguably slows the game down a little bit because people aren't going to be able to buy UAVs as easily and as often, and therefore the teams that want to be more aggressive, they're having a harder time at it because there's less money to go around. But with that, that's everything that I've discovered so far that they have changed with this update that wasn't mentioned within the patch notes. Of course, if there's anything else you've noticed with this update that you think or know has changed that wasn't mentioned in the patch notes and I haven't mentioned in today's video, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm definitely willing to test out some other things, and if there are more changes like this, I can absolutely make another one of these videos. Now, as usual with these stealth change videos, I just wanted to express my frustration once again. I find this to be kind of ridiculous that they don't share this information in patch notes, especially when a lot of these changes are excellent changes that the community would welcome and praise. So it seems strange that they would intentionally hide this stuff from us. So really, it just seems like this is going back to a communication issue internally, which I mean, now with a bunch of people working at home and stuff, I understand that a lot more than before. So if it was just a one-time thing while this stuff is going on, I would be a lot more understanding. But the fact that this has been consistently happening basically since this game launched, I just find that to be completely crazy, because it's the only AAA game that I know of, at least, that is this consistent with making this many gameplay-related changes without ever mentioning them to the player base. But with that, that's going to wrap up today's video on the stealth changes that I've been able to find so far with this most recent update. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.